Hey all, here is a water shape file set that's been offered by Gina Hubbard to subscribers at Hummy's World. After it is available for a short while to subscribers, it will come down and be in Gina's store at her own site. And I have asked Gina to share these in 3 different formats. One of them is the PSD file, which is something that I see as an awesome thing for Photoshop Elements users, and I'm going to share with you why, and I'm going to share with you the various files that are in the download. But first I want to share with you a few things in the thread. Gina did this layout with the shape files. It kind of shows you what you can do with these shape files. She simply clipped and put a border around the bubble shape, filling it with photos. And then you can see the water shape and then the fish tucked in here. And it looks to be clipped with papers, and that would be just simply using the shape file and a Control-G, or if you are in the full version of Photoshop, I think it's Control-Alt-G, and that will clip it to the shape. And so those are some uses that you can use. Here is another layout by Jen. And she also used the bubble file to put her photos into. And she also did another one, and these are just circles. They are not that shape file, but you can spy the water here and the little seahorse here and the fish in use here. And she really used them in some unique ways. And then here's my layout. It's totally not as impressive, but it's clean and white and has journaling. Yay for journaling! But we're going to talk about that layout in a minute. And before I go forward, I want to talk about why what simplify means in Photoshop Elements, and also rasterize and vector. I know those may be some strange terms to some people, but it's going to be able to help you understand the importance of the various files that are offered in these downloads, so that you can make an educated decision on which ones to use and which ones you want to keep. So I'm just going to read my blog post. You can see it's from 2009 because it describes this the best. It says, I keep seeing the word simplify in working around Photoshop Elements. What does that mean? I get asked that question often, so I wrote a blog post. First, if you are familiar with vector images and rasterizing, as in the full version of Photoshop or in PSP, then simplify could be equated to rasterize. Why they don't call it rasterize in Photoshop Elements, I don't know. It would be a lot less confusing. But anytime you see the word simplify in Photoshop Elements, know that it's actually rasterizing. So what's the difference between rasterize and vector, or raster? A vector image, and I always get these two confused. A vector image is a set of instructions, although you are seeing the rough results of those instructions on the screen. It is not a permanent image. And so making changes in a vector image does not damage the quality of the edges and create jaggies. Once you rasterize the vector image or simplify it, it makes those instructions permanent. So applying the simplify in Photoshop Elements is the same as rasterizing. Therefore, changes made to the simplified image or the rasterized image may damage the edges. And normally I'm not so picky or concerned, I'm just scrapping for myself, but this is really important if you are designing. It's all a matter of the trained eye to be able to see these. A lot of people don't see them, those jaggies, and if you're wanting to work in an advanced skills, you need to know these differences. This little button here in Photoshop Elements, when you see the check mark, you're actually simplifying. So one example of simplify in Photoshop Elements is in the creation of text and clicking the check mark to accept the text. This is actually rasterizing or accepting the instructions and making them permanent. So then after you do that, then when you resize your text, you may end up with jaggies. Therefore, you can look at the check mark to accept procedures, and the simplify and PSE is working the same, but they use different terms. If a layer style is applied and that layer style is simplified, you can right click on the layer to see this option. Then it is permanently committing those instructions of the layer style to that layer. There are instances when this is necessary. For example, I was helping someone just yesterday who needed to simplify a layer before running an action. Often for new people, the answer to the problem is that you are on the wrong layer. The second most common answer to the problem is that of simplifying the layer. Those two little helps sometimes save a lot of time and stress. Always be on the lookout for them. And so this person was having a problem, and her answer was it needed to be simplified. So the two most common problems in Photoshop Elements are: one, you're on the wrong layer, and that's why you're getting an error message, or two, you need to simplify it. But that's the differences between vector and raster. And I have here the files that Gina is offering, and the first one is the .csh file. Now I have other tutorials that share how to install the CSH files, and in Photoshop Elements it's actually fairly difficult to install them, I think, and it keeps me as a Photoshop Elements user from using shapefiles just because it's so difficult to install them. It's time consuming to install them, and that is the way all people will share shape files. Gina has also shared them as a PNG, and you can use these PNG files, but if you are resizing them, these are already rasterized images. They are already simplified images, so resizing them may cause some jagged edges, and so that is why using the PNG are a little more difficult. And so if you want to save space on your hard drive, even though these aren't taking up too much space, but a whole bunch of shape files might, you can actually just delete these because you have this file here, which is the PSD file. And Gina has provided a preview of what's in this PSD file. So if you wanted, you could delete the shape file and delete the PNG file and just keep the PSD file. You could, if you don't want to use the PSD file, you could delete the other options to save hard drive space. Because the JPEG then is there because you can use your tagging programs that will permanently tag into a JPEG, and you could tag it water or summer or whatever, so that when you're doing searches for things for your layouts, it will show up, and then you can go to that folder and find this PSD file or the shape file if that's what you're using. PNG files do not retain tags permanently in them. So that's why this great JPEG image is important. So if you install this CSH, you would use your shape. I think spy them down here. No, I don't. It's another water one I found. You would use your shape tool if you installed them into your shapes. But with the PSD file, you simply bring it over and you're going to open it up, and you see in here each one of the shapes, and they are on a layer. We can make them invisible by themselves. For instance, here's the wave layer all by itself, and you can see it has some gray around it. That's because this layer is still a vector image, so you don't have to install anything. That's what's so great about these. I'm already loving them. I want all the designers to be sharing shapes like this. I could just open up this PSD file and drag this wave over, close out the PSD file, and I'm going to bring it to the top so it's above all my stuff on my layer, on my layout, to make it easier for you to see. So there, I have now a wave file, and you can see it's retained that gray around it in the preview. This is still a rasterized image, and you can see for my layout it goes out into the edges. It's a little too big because I'm not in a 12 by 12 paper, and so I would need to resize this down, and I can do that by grabbing the corners and resizing it down, and it's still a vector image. It is still retaining that quality. This is the same thing as if you would install one through here. If you would, it looks like I'm on the wave one. There's a wave one, and it fills it with my background color in this case, but you see here it still has the gray around it, but it's giving me the choice up here to simplify it or rasterize it, and I could do that, or I could not do that. You could see here, if you're on this layer, I could simplify the wave layer that we took from Gina's file up here when I'm on it, or not, in order to resize it. You can also simplify by right-clicking and finding the simplify here. And sometimes, and in my case on this layout here, there are reasons to do that. Most of the time it's because you've got some layer styles on there and you want to make changes. But if you want, you can put a paper above this. I don't have a paper available, and but I could just simply add a new layer and fill it with and that would be like a paper, and it's on the layer above the shape layer, and just press Ctrl G on my keyboard and you see it's now clipped with it. And so if that was a paper with a pattern on it, now it would be clipped to that shape. So you can clip papers to it. You can do anything with this that you can do with other pattern files that we normally find in our layered templates. You can add layer styles to them, and I actually tried to utilize this wow neon on my shape files up there, and that's how I got this wave, instead of being a solid color, to be an outline. I used these and I thought it turned out pretty cool, but then I had trouble, because I'm in Photoshop Elements and not the full version, I had trouble, I didn't like this color being so bright, and that's when I had to simplify it. Now if I was in the full version I would have been able to change the color. It didn't quite do it right. Oh, that's right, because it's on screen. and then I pulled up Control U and I backed it off and played with it and made it a different color because I had trouble recoloring it in the full version. But that's how I made these waves. And these little fishy shapes, you can see in the layers palette, I've left them as a vector image. I had no reason to simplify them, and I can tell you that I've resized this little guy I'm not sure how many times, and I was able to keep his quality because it is a vector image. And up here, let's see if we could zoom in and see the difference. No, I can't really see the difference. I did resize this one, but I resized it down, and it didn't change it too much. And these little fish are also still the vector images. And so the bubbles are from the shapefile, and I added my own layer styles to them out of Photoshop Elements. In fact, I think I just went to strokes, and I added this one for gradient stroke green and blue, and then I went to visibility and clicked this one, and it hid the black and made it white. And so that's how I did that, the bubbles. Anyway, that's what's so great about having this file. I absolutely, positively love having these in PSD, and for me personally, I would just delete these PNG ones, because once you open this up, you have the exact same thing, only in vector right here, where you can resize without losing quality. So quick, so fast and easy that way. Just super fast and easy that way. Just like that, and you have the shapefile. You don't even have to use the shape tool. So cool, so fun. So anyway, have fun, and I look forward to seeing what you can do with all these shapefiles. You know, after you could fill them in, and you could use dodge and burn on the edges. You can add a little eye with the brush work. You can do all sorts of things. You can use blending modes to kind of blend them into a background. See, I'm getting excited. See you around the forum.